You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash. Here's today's comic, Electric Warriors number 3 from DC Comics by Steve Orlando. Art by Travel Foreman, color by a robot, apparently. This is a miniseries, 6-issue miniseries. Did not know this when I bought it, but I'm going to stick with it. I don't really like miniseries if I can avoid them. They got to be something special. I think far too many miniseries get released, Batman Kings of Fear, that just have no business being released. It's an extra way of putting a book on your pull list and getting a couple extra bucks out of you every month or every couple of weeks or whatever the release schedule is, because you're like, oh, I want to check this out, and it's only a couple issues and then it's gone. But the cycle perpetuates, and that it gets me. My pull list is way too big right now. So I am enjoying this book, however. The first issue was good. The second issue was just as good. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not this isn't going to go down in history as some great classic book. This is no Infinity Gauntlet. But it's fun. It's a really good sci-fi adventure story. It takes place in the future, like 3,000 years. And it's in the DC universe. But there's only very mild calling back to that said universe. But what there is enough to tie it in. And I really feel it's worth your time to check it out. It kind of feels like a Flash Gordon story in that sense. But let's get on with it. If you have been following on, you kind of know where we are. The Electric Warriors are... It's that trope where planetary empires don't want to wage war against each other, so they nominate champions, and then the champions fight, and the outcome of that fight determines the winner of the war. This was like a Star Trek episode. I think they may have done a Twilight Zone episode on it. This has been done before. Like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. But they're bringing that trope here in the DC universe. And Earth actually has 2 champions, because the whole story about Earth is that sometime in Earth's future, but in the past of this book, something gave sentience to all the animal races. So now it's this this anthropomorphic world where animals and humans live together, but it's more of like a Planet of the Apes scenario where humans are outcast. And this is all starting to reverse itself, and in some sort of metaphor for the human rights movement where humans represent the minority. Yada, 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 yada. If that all is like turning you off, don't worry. That's just like a quick couple pages backstory. It's not really the focus of this book at all. But it is an excuse for Earth to have 2 champions instead of 1, which is the only planet that does so. Earth's champion is this guy named Warcry, and he wields an artifact, the Shroud of Kal-El, or whatever, which is basically Superman's cape, which is kind of one of the tie-ins to the DC universe. And then every other champion, which are called Electric Warriors, because they have this electric... They don't even really explain any of that. They're all aliens, each one from a different species. Coincidentally, they all look human, because that's how we do sci-fi, I guess. So, when we left off the last book, it was Earth versus Earth. And Warcry, and I never forgot her name. She's this octopus girl. Had to fight each other because he had lost his original fight. So Earth lost all their food. Or at least the humans did, for whatever reason. That's kind of silly. This book particularly, requires a lot of suspension of disbelief, where you're just like, all right, doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm just going to accept it for the sake of the story. An alien empire wanted food from Earth, so they take it. But they only take it from the humans. They don't take it from these guys, which in a real war, like, you sack a planet and you take all their food. So only the humans lost their food. All the animals keep their food. So now the humans were like, well, we're starving, so we're going to attack the animals and take their food. Which they don't actually attack them. They just say, we're taking the food and Warcry, you fight for us. So these two are fighting. And she's like, well, if you didn't lose your fight, you wouldn't lost your food. And he's like, what are we supposed to do? Starve? Like, that's just stupid. So they're fighting, and he annihilates her. And there she's lying dead. Pretty gross. Warcry is a champion. And then at that moment, I kind of like what they do this here, these little chapter break things. And usually they were saying like chapter 2, chapter 3, but they guys will break at that moment. Another field in the war ground. Don't turn away, gentle Gilded. Can Inceptor repel the hungry hands of our warrior from Bismol, Supermaw? Listen to me, the trials don't have to end in death. But my seed makes me hungry, pacifist. Then I'm sorry. Wait, watch, Inceptor. Wow, Inceptor blasts Supermaw at the last second with his mnemonic grief bullet. Come on, Steve. I think you could have created a cooler name than mnemonic grief bullet. But I'm okay. Like I said, you just... Okay, for the sake of the story. Blast him his mnemonic grief bullet. And then, wait. In his mind, the guild is spawned. No! So, here is the hook of the story. So, he got this flash image in that guy's mind as he killed him. Not sure how this guy had the information in his mind, but he did. Suffice it to say, this isn't right. Your gracious hosts are always my Gildisfahn's friends. And you see them eating on the bodies of fallen electric warriors. Will your reclusive Lord Preceptor at last be joining us? So that's the whole thing. He's like, holy shit, what's going on here? I must find our leader. And then we have another fight, and this girl's like, come on, wise one. And she's fighting Orthus, who is the guy who's trying to like lead this rebellion of electric warriors. He's the one who's never lost in battle. And she's one of his race. I don't know how, or at least part of their empire. I don't know why they're fighting each other. This part never gets explained too much. Because each one is supposed to have one champion. But apparently there's two champions. Again, like I said, it requires a little bit of suspension of disbelief because you're like, this is not making sense. The only thing I can think of that makes sense to me is like they're challenging him to be the new Electric Warrior because he's never fallen. He's been around since the beginning. And I guess maybe they're like, well, the only way to replace him to step up and fill his shoes is to beat him. So, whatever. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. So he doesn't want to kill her, and he's basically telling her the whole time, I can kill you, stop, da-da-da. And she's like, well, what's the problem? You should do so. And then she bites him on the neck, tears off his throat, and he falls dead. To which, again, the suspension of disbelief. The oldest warrior of all, who's never lost... This is how he falls. Like, she just bites him. Yes, I know that he didn't want to kill her and he's holding back and that's how she wins. Like, but still, you gotta be a little... That's just I'm having a hard time buying that would happen to the greatest of all. But that's what happens. Then we go to Tall Barracks hours later. I had to do it, and we see Warcry all upset because he killed the octopus girl that he didn't want to. And he's trying to rationalize it. If you idiots hadn't been so stubborn, if Earth hadn't challenged itself, I wouldn't have had to. We're humans. We're supposed to be better than those animals, but we just... Beasts? By Belloc? I killed you, One. Lucky for me, your ignorance about animals extends to octopus biology. If we don't put our brain in our head, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Whatever. So she's not dead. She heals miraculously. Hours later. Again, part of the story. This is 3,000 years in the future, right? There's miraculous healing technology. I'll buy into that. So we get some more exposition and characters because whatever. So now we get her. She comes and she's like, "Oh, you guys are foreplay. Did I interrupt you guys?" And they're like, "What? What? No. What are you talking about?" So she's explaining about how in Kundia, where she's from, killing and is both respectful and disdainful at the same time, and blah blah. You know, the typical comic trope where it's, you know, like Klingons. Oh, it's an honor. So you've got aliens who think that way, and she's that, and she teases them about, you know, having, you know, the foreplay incident, and he's denying it, and which is so typical. I see, like in this is very actually typical in like manga and anime. But so she's like, "Well, Yomin, do you agree with the jellyfish? I want to believe Kana, but I think you might be right. I just hate it. Please stop whining." Of course, you know, the masculine female and the effeminate male is a common thing in modern, not just comics, it's TV, it's everything. In modern fiction, it's women can't be effeminate. They must be dominant, and they must dominate males. That's the way it is. And the reason they do that is because they feel such gender roles are bad, but yet they put those gender roles on, they reverse them to them. It's like so hypocritical. It's wrong that men think they can dominate women, so we're going to write media that women dominate men. Oh, okay. On Kundia, argument is foreplay. Is that a problem? Want to have words here and now? Okay. We're better, of course, so. She dominates him. A little sex scene that we don't get. Meanwhile, in other parts of the city, we see one of the other Electric Warrior guy, or the original guy that I wish I can remember all these names. It's one of the problems with this book, but you can recognize by their look. It's the emotional kind of guy that he originally saw the vision. He's now telling this Dominator guy, and the Dominator's lamenting about how their empire's fallen so bad, like no one even like battles them anymore because they don't have anything that they want. And this guy's trying to tell him, "Is that so bad? What am I meant to do when my people are so insequential that I rarely need to champion at all?" And he tries to tell him, "Well, rock bottom is a clean slate, Dominator. You can build up from it. The Varangs did, for good and bad. A forgotten world is free not to be an example to hold." Sorry, I'm reading this poorly. Free not to hold an example. Be an example, I should say. Gosh. Take 5. For good and bad, the forgotten world is free not to be an example, to hold no standard but their own, and reinvent themselves, to accept that they're important only to themselves. Such a thought would be heresy to my home. Dominion forbids individuality. Would not even know how to begin reinvention. Blah, blah, blah. So we get this long thing, and he's like, "I would start with a name. We've been side by side for years. I proudly name you like family. Chlain-Zwan. Thanks for making a word we can't pronounce." I don't know. My people wouldn't approve. Beautiful kin. So he's translating. I did not think I would ever have. Thank you, Leo Swan. So that's his name, Leo Swan. I value our friendship. And I'm sitting here kind of mocking all this. In truth, this was actually kind of a touching scene. It's really kind of in the foundation of what's been built up before this. I'm like, oh, we got. But honestly, this was a scene of a little bit of character development to make you feel for these characters a little bit, and it did pretty good. You kind of like, because you know, normal DC universe, these are like bad guys, and they're just like an evil empire that conquers everyone. But here, you're meant to see them in a different light. And this is a catalyst character that brings empathy. I kind of like that scene. Here we have Batman, The Flash, The Price, 4-part crossover. Oh, Joshua Williams, okay. I don't have to buy any extra special, like, Batman Flash crossover issue number 1. Flash Batman crossover issue number. Like, I hate when they do that. But Crisis crossover. Look at this. This art is not pretty. Like, what is going on? Ugh. So, the idea. We can tell them together. With Orthos gone, I wasn't sure you'd come. Yes, he died. I killed him. Now his time is to be honored. The infiltration. So it's like dun 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 dun. So showing guys going through a hallway, avoiding lasers. It's hard for us to see us as Orthos might have agreed. Orthos had more kills than anyone in the Covenant. He survived better than any. He must have known he'd one day fall to its ways, blah, blah, blah. So this part I was like a little sketchy on, and they just talking it. It's like dialogue, talking, exposition. Okay, back to infiltration. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, two-headed guard. Then we can look both ways at once. So I brought you here. They're like cutting back and forth between, and it doesn't really work here for me. Especially since like I read down to here, then I read up to here, and I was like, wait, is this supposed to go from here to here? So I literally stopped and reread the whole page and read this panel, then this, and then read it. And truthfully enough, it works both ways. It's like, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess, that you made it. But I didn't like that I had to read it twice, and it really took me out of the story and kind of irritated me. And I get what you're doing here. You're doing that whole movie concept, where you're like having voiceover, like talking about the plan, then showing them actually executing the plan, and cutting back to talking more about the plan, then executing that part of the plan. It works better in film than it does on the page here. Speaking of Crisis, in case you didn't know, there's a comic book out. So they already have 4 issues. They're already halfway through. It's called Crisis. Akun does not turn away, so yes. Of course, etc. So they're all agreeing to go. Back to the infiltration. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, look, I got octopus arms. I can hold us all together. Every death matters, yes. So, it's like one at a time they're accepting. Well, of course, they're doing the mission. We know. I wonder if she accepts. She's for honor. Because this whole thing could be a lie. And you're just waiting on me? No, we know you're part of it. We already saw. But, okay, whatever. I'm being a little bit hard. So he uses his sound magnification powers or whatever to amplify what he's hearing across the other side of the wall. And that's where we get what's going on. By the way, I'm spoiling this book in case you hadn't realized. Who bids the highest for this fallen champion? Rah, rah, rah. And here we see Orthos dead. And they're eating him. It's disgusting. What uses it in such a state? Oh, its heart and flesh are still strong. Weak-minded fools, your day too will come. I can think of a few. And in case you don't recognize that guy, that's Firestorm. Electric Warriors, round 3, spoils of war. By the reborn seed, my vision was right. We're not warriors. We're cattle. And then see the hanging body. This dude in a very dominatrix S&M thing has got this guy on his... Okay, Orlando, I don't know what's going on in your mind, buddy, but... So, that's it. This wasn't as good as the first 2 books, but I still enjoyed it. And even though I'm criticizing it and kind of mocking it, why it gets a pass for me is because this book never asserted itself as anything but this high adventure, intergalactic, fun sort of story. It's not trying to be pretentious. It's not trying to tell, like this is the most sophisticated story. No, it's just good, fun comics for all to enjoy. And when I remember that, when I'm reading it, I'm like, you know what? Let's not treat this as Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns, right? Let's just go back to the days when comics were meant to just tell fun stories and We didn't criticize every little, like, oh, that scientific thing is completely inaccurate. Like, you get a little bit of the Simpsons comic book nerd on it, and it's like, whoa, okay, I got to rein myself in. But since I'm reviewing the book and critiquing it, I feel like I need to point some of these things out, to be fair. So, Electric Warriors, number 3. I still think it's worth it on the merits I just explained. It's a fun book. If you haven't got into it at this point, if I'm not selling you on the book, if you're like, wow, I really feel the urge to get it, then I'd probably ease off. Maybe this book isn't enough in your wheelhouse to justify. And maybe pick up a trade for cheap. Comics. It'll probably be in Comixology in a few months on a trade for half off. And you can read the story then and enjoy it. Like I said, it is a fun story. Orlando is someone I'm really learning to like. He's not necessarily the best storyteller, but he's got some really inventive ideas. And the difference, like his writing ability isn't great, but his stories are fun, if that makes sense. If he had better writing skill, like say he had Bendis' writing skill. Bendis has a strong writing skill. He just can't create a story to save his life. It just goes on for eternity and nothing happens. Orlando makes things happen. He just doesn't put it on the page that well. And he's getting better, though. And he's not terrible. So I definitely am enjoying anything that he writes. I mean, I'm getting this book because of him. I found him out through his book, The Unexpected, which I really enjoyed. This book I'm probably even enjoying more. Just for its sense of fun. This issue was a little weak. Checking out Martian Manhunter because, I like the guy. So, yeah, at the risk of just going on and on forever, thank you for watching. Put some comments down below. Tell me what other things I might like if I like this. If there's anything part of DC history that I don't know. Because oftentimes I come in and like, this is brand new. And then someone like Sergeant Bats will come on and go, dude, you're such a nub. That's like from 10 years ago when DC did this story, blah, 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 blah story. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Kind of like Freedom Fighters. Freedom Fighters example. I was like, oh, that's totally a new thing. And then I was like, no, you stupid nub. That's not. You don't have to call me stupid. I do have feelings. Sergeant Bats doesn't know. He's just a hardcore. He doesn't. I cry at night. But it's okay, Bats. You don't got to feel bad. I'm not going to make you feel bad. I'm better than that. Anyways, put some comments below. I'll do some more. If you see my pull list videos and there's any books that you want me to review there that I'm not, let me know. If there's any books I'm not reading that I should be reading, tell me. It's going to be difficult because I have to pull something off my list to add room. But it should be only the best. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. And yeah.